Welcome to this lesson on our 45, 45, 90 triangles. Make sure you got your sheet with you. I'm going to go through all those examples, but first I have a couple things to talk about. Multiplying square roots, multiplying our numbers with our radicals. So the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. We can multiply the numbers underneath, where this would become the square root of 6. Example 2, square root of 3 times the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So this would become 2 times the square root of 3. And when we write this, we always write it with the 2 out front and the square root number coming next. The last one, square root of 2 times the square root of 2 becomes the square root of 4, and the square root of 4 becomes 2. So if you ever multiply two square roots that have the same number underneath, that number that's underneath, that's going to become your answer. A couple more to get through. So square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Check for yourself. That would become the square root of 9, which is 3. So same thing applied there. 2 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. We multiply the numbers outside, so 2 times, the number outside here would be a 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. And then we got the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 becomes the square root of 4, which is 2. So we have 2 times 2, which ends up being 4. A lot going on there. But we multiply our numbers underneath, or on the outside. So 3 times 2 is 6. Then we've got the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Again, well, that's the square root of 4, which becomes 6 times the square root of 4 is 2. So this simplifies down to be 12. So we got to have a handle on this before we dive into our 45, 45, 90 triangle. So 45, 45, 90 triangle, we also can refer to it as an isosceles right triangle, where we have a 90-degree angle and the two sides are both 45 degrees. Here is where you're going to write what you're going to write in your math dictionary. So if you want to give it a pause here, make sure you draw down these diagrams. I'm going to talk about the examples I have on the right here. If you're given this 8, that means you're given the hypotenuse. So if you're given the hypotenuse, then you're going to plug that 8 in for the h of the leg equation, because you're trying to find the length of the legs. So this would be 1/2 times 8 instead of h, square root of 2. So the leg would be 4 square root 2. Let me change colors here. If you are given this 4, this represents the leg of the triangle. Therefore, if you're given the leg, you're going to plug it right here to find the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is going to equal that leg times the square root of 2. So the hypotenuse in this one would be 4 square root 2. Okay, make sure you have these definitions. You got your equations. Make sure you have your equations written on your sheet of paper with your notes. I'm going to dive right in and start doing some of these examples here. So example 1. We are given a hypotenuse of 18. This represents the hypotenuse. It won't give me, there we go. Hypotenuse. Therefore, we want to find the leg. So whatever we're trying to find, that's the equation, or whatever we're trying to find the leg, then we need to use the equation with the leg out front. That little lowercase l, that's what that represents. So each leg is half the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 18. I'm plugging in for h. half of 18 times the square root of 2. So the leg equals half of 18 is 9 square root of 2. So y equals 9 square root 2. Since it's isosceles, these two sides are the same, therefore this side would also be 9 square root 2. Example 2. We are given the hypotenuse of 11 square root of 2. This represents h. Therefore, I'm going to plug it in so I can find the leg. So the leg equals 1/2. The hypotenuse is 11 square root of 2. That's the whole hypotenuse times the square root of 2. Now, if I simplify this, I can get rid of the parentheses. I just wanted to show you that a common mistake is to write 11 square root of 2 and forget about this square root of 2 out here. So if I erase the parentheses and we go to simplifying this, we're going to have the leg equals 1/2 times 11 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. This equals the square root of 4, which ends up being 2. And if I do half of 2, I'm left with 1. Therefore, each leg is 11. So y equals 11. Let me show you the trick from the diagram where we don't have to do all of that extra simplifying. Our diagram looks like this. It's the leg and the leg times the square root of 2. This is our hypotenuse. Notice how our answer for the leg was 11. If our hypotenuse has the square root of 2 here, then each leg is going to be equal to whatever number's out front. So notice how 11 ended up matching both of those sides. That's a little trick. It can be confusing. It takes a little bit of practice to kind of get used to the idea. Example 3. We have the leg. We want to find the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse equals, this is a leg, this is our L. So I'm going to plug it in for the L to find our hypotenuse. So we've got 3.2 times the square root of 2. And we're done. Y equals 3.2 square root of 2. Example 4, I'm going to let you try. Example 5, I'm going to let you try. Example 6, I'm going to let you try that one. Example 7, I'm going to do with you, and 8. Those examples in between, if you have questions, ask Mr. Ryan for help or ask him to check your answers when you attempt to do those. So example 7 here. The leg's 3 square root of 2, we want to find the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse equals 3 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 becomes the square root of 4, which is 3 times 2. So our hypotenuse equals 6. All right, last example I'm going to do this. Number 8 is a doozy. It's a challenging one. So I will do it with you. We have 5 square root of 2 divided by 2. That represents the leg. We're trying to find the hypotenuse. So we need to plug this whole thing in for L. So we have 5 times the square root of 2 divided by 2 times square root of 2. Since this is a fraction, I'm going to write the square root of 2 as a fraction over 1. In which, when we do this as a fraction, we multiply across the top. So we have 5 times the square root, 2 times 2 is 4, divided by 2. H equals 5 times, well, the square root of 4 is 2, divided by 2. And you can think of this two ways. 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Or you can simplify that 2 and a 2. Either way, we end up with a hypotenuse equal to 5. The backside of this sheet is your assignment.